to this edition of Buncombe Live. I'm out here. If you hear some noise in the background, it's traffic. I'm right across from my office here downtown at the roundabout at College and Valley. And as you can see behind us, we have decorated. This building actually belongs to Buncombe County, Carolina First Bank building, but it's also a Buncombe County building. And we have decorated with our campaign for this year, Grow BC, to get greener, healthier, kinder, safer, and smarter. And this month, we're talking about being safer. And I've got some information for you I have enjoyed learning about, and I don't think all of you at home realize. I'm here with David Meese. Thank you, David, for joining me. Tell me your title.
I'm the Food and Lodging Supervisor for Environmental Health.
Okay, for Environmental Health.
Yes.
Now, that sounds really big, and it is big because what they do is keep us safe. I want to talk today about what you guys do when you go out and inspect restaurants and lodging facilities. And I think most folks at home, you know, when you go into a restaurant and you see the grade, it's A, B, C. I hope you hardly ever see a C, but I'm sure it can happen. There are folks that work for Buncombe County that actually go out and grade those places.
That's right.
And that's what you guys do.
That's correct.
Now, tell me about that.
Well, we conduct unannounced sanitation inspections of restaurants.
Unannounced.
Unannounced. They don't know we're coming. Legally, we can come in any time that they're open for business or they're preparing food.
Right. And you just inspect for temperatures and cleanliness, and
that's correct.
You have a whole list of stuff that you look for?
We do. Our grade sheet is multifaceted.
Yeah.
It's divided into two parts, critical risk violations and good retail practices, or what we call good housekeeping practices.
What's a critical risk? Just a sample of a critical risk violation.
A critical risk violation are those that contribute to foodborne illness outbreaks. They're things like improper storage of food.
Like if you leave it out too long?
That, or if you're storing raw meat above any food that's like vegetables that aren't going to be cooked, or any food that's pre-cooked or not going to go through another cooking process.
Yeah. So you can't put raw meat next to that stuff?
No, that you don't want to put it above or beside.
Really?
That's correct, yeah.
My kitchen at home would be an extreme violation, I'm afraid. Isn't it true? I think that probably the rules for restaurants are much stricter than what we probably do at home.
What we look for in restaurants, even my kitchen will probably fail.
So you just don't look too close at home?
No.
But when you're protecting the public, and that's what you guys are charged to do, protect the public.
That's correct, yes.
So when we go into a restaurant and we see an A, there's an A, but there's also a number. Explain what that number means.
Okay, that sanitation score is based on the problems that were found during the inspection. It runs from 90 to 100 is a A.
Okay.
80 to 89 and a half is a B. And then 70 to 79 and a half is a C. And if their sanitation score falls below a 70, then their food service permit is actually revoked on the spot.
And they have to stop serving?
Yes, they can't reopen.
Yeah. I've never been to a C. I have to admit, I've never been in a restaurant if I could see the grade. Now, I've been in other states where you can't really find it, but I've never seen a C.
Well, it happens occasionally. Not as, it's infrequent, but it does happen.
Right. But B's are fairly frequent.
I would say that they're not what you would call common, but they're not uncommon.
They're not uncommon.
Right.
But I have to say, most around town here in Buncombe County is an A.
That's correct. Yeah.
I try to get something above 97. If the restaurant is a 97 or above, I feel pretty good about it. Does it matter between 90 and...
Well, what you have to remember is that the sanitation score is a snapshot in time, and the problems that we find were problems that were found while we were there.
Right.
It could have been that the restaurant was having a bad day, some problems came up, but it's hopefully after we've left, they've tried to improve their practices.
Right, so even if it's a 95, they could be having a great day today and it would be 100 if you came in and checked
That's correct, it's possible.
Okay. How often do you check these restaurants?
Well, we have what's called now is a risk-based frequency of inspection. And restaurants it's based on their food processes and their menus, and also whether they serve a highly susceptible population or not. And when you think of that, think of nursing homes, hospitals,
Okay.
maybe schools that serve preschool-age kids.
In my mind, I'm thinking, you know, Hardee's, McDonald's, Olive Garden. I'm just running through Tunnel Road here. You know what the restaurants, but you guys inspect every food place. So you're talking, you inspect schools?
That's correct. Schools,
oh my goodness.
School cafeterias, nursing home, food service facilities.
Yeah. And the hospitals?
The hospitals, yes. We also do meat markets, produce stands.
Wow, you guys are busy.
We're very busy, yes.
Wow, so you say high risk gets checked more often.
That's right. When I first started years ago, every food service facility was inspected once every 3 months.
Yeah.
And now we've gone to a risk-based frequency of inspection, and it's based on their menu and their food processes, whereas if, say, a coffee shop is using reusable mugs,
right.
Those are required to be washed and sanitized properly, and we inspect those once a year.
Okay.
If it's a hot dog stand,
yeah.
or a pizza shop that just does pizza, they're inspected twice a year because the risk is less.
Gotcha.
If it's a middle school cafeteria, if it's a deli at a supermarket, those are inspected 3 times a year, once every 4 months.
Now, how about the hotels that cater? Do you check that?
We
too?
do. If it's a catering, a hotel that caters, they're inspected Category 3 once every 4 months. Or if they're doing a specialized process, we inspect those more frequently. It's up to once every 3 months is the most frequent we can inspect an establishment.
This is a curiosity question on my part. Now I'm back to restaurants where I may frequently visit,
right.
the fast food and the sit-down restaurants. What do they get in trouble most often for?
Well, it varies. You know, what we hope to see and what we really focus on is the risk factors.
Yeah.
Things like making sure the employees wash their hands when they're required to, after using the bathroom,
right.
after handling a raw product, or when they, you know, if they take the garbage out, they're required to wash their hands. We make sure that refrigeration is working properly, that it's holding, you know, food at 45 or below for cold food.
Yeah. So now, do you do like the guy on Kitchen Nightmares where you take the white gloves and you check for...
No, we don't do that. we actually have some standard equipment that we all use. I mean,
right.
one of the most important we have is a thermometer to check food temps with. We have a flashlight so that we can see into areas that might be dark. And
right.
We do have some specialized equipment, test strips that check the chemical strength of the sanitizing solution.
Right.
We do have thermolabel strips that we run through dish machines to make sure that they're getting hot enough to...
yeah, so that the plates that are being used...
so that they're clean and sanitized.
Well, now that makes total sense, because that's the places where you could go somewhere and actually get sick.
That's correct, yeah. That goes back to the critical risk factors, again, to make sure that employees are washing their hands, that they're not working when they're sick. You know, we all have to pay our bills. But unfortunately, in the food service industry, they don't have sick days like you or I do.
That's right.
So a lot of people do try to work when they're ill, when they shouldn't be working.
Now, how about the buffets? Do they take special? You'll have to check those.
We check those. We check to make sure that the food is being held at the proper temperature. If it's hot food, it should be 135 or above. Cold food should be 45 or below.
So let's say you go into a restaurant and you use your equipment, your thermometers, and you find out something's not the temperature it should be, or that meat is sitting somewhere that it shouldn't be.
Right.
Is that where you take points off?
Yes, it is. We do have what's called a corrective action tool that we use, and if it can be corrected during the inspection, the restaurant owner has the opportunity to do that.
Right.
If hot food's not being held at the proper temperature, it can be reheated or thrown out. We do ask in certain circumstances where the restaurant owner discards the product. And that way, we're actually just trying to protect the public health by doing that.
Right. So if you take off, when they get their new score, let's say they had an A at a 97, and you find some discrepancies that need to be fixed, their new score might be an A, but it might be a 94.
It could be, yes.
Okay.
And we do have, we all carry computers, and we can actually pull up the last inspection, and if it was a problem the last inspection and they haven't corrected it, then we can take more points. It's when we're out in the field, we have the professional judgment of using half the point deductions or full. And that's some things people may not know as well is we have very specific guidelines on how we can deduct points on certain items.
It's not just up to what you feel
no,
like
it's
that
not.
day. Yeah.
The inspection report is a legal document, and the state has very specific guidelines on how points should be deducted. You know, it could, the public's perception is that if they have roaches, that it should be 10-point deduction, but based on the state rules and how the grade sheet's set up, we can only deduct a certain amount of points.
So, if you do find a place with bugs, you tell them you got to get rid of the bugs.
We do. We tell them they need to hire a licensed pest control company to come in and deal with the problem.
Yeah.
It's a lot of times it's not just the bug problem. There's other problems that contribute to that, like poor housekeeping practices.
Right. Now let's say that you found a place that had a bug problem. Do you go back and check them more often, or do they just get back into your schedule?
We just verify that they are being taken care of by a licensed pest control company, and they're not inspected any more frequently unless it's a critical violation. Okay.
Because I love the fact that you guys are out there checking these restaurants, because all I do is look for the grade and know y'all have been there and you felt good on that, at least on that day, on that snapshot, this place looked good. However, if I'm a restaurant owner, this could mean my livelihood.
That's correct.
What you guys say could essentially shut me down if I get a bad rep. So you've really taken care of the community on both sides by being fair to these places and keeping people healthy, because if you also miss something and they caused a sickness, you talk about shutting somebody down.
Right, it has a big impact. I know Orange County in California conducted a study several years ago where they looked at sanitation scores before they started using sanitation scores that were posted, and after, and they found that the posting of sanitation scores actually improved the hygienic qualities of the restaurants. They actually did a better job.
I believe that.
Yeah.
If you're going to have to post the score that you got, man, if I've got a bad one, I'm going to work really hard to make sure it's better next time.
Right. It's actually a tool that can be used to make sure that they're trying to do a good job.
Yeah. And I just got to ask this because a lot of people have asked, how do you get 102?
Well, you, by North Carolina law, if the restaurant owner or manager has a Serve Safe food safety certification or an approved food safety course certificate, we're required to give them 2 points on their final grade.
Cool.
So it's based about the state's.
And these are classes.
They are. They're a 2-day class where it's taught nationwide. Right. We actually teach it here in Buncombe County. I taught it myself for 4 years. Yeah. It's a 2-day course where we teach the basics of food safety all the way up to what we look for during an inspection. And there's a test at the end of the 2-day class, and if they pass, then they get a certificate.
Well, now, this is a question that just came to me, but I've actually heard people speak of it. Let's say I go to a restaurant and I see something that I think is just disgusting. Do I call you guys and report it?
Yes, you can. You can call our environmental health office and make a report. It can be anonymous. We just need to know the restaurant, the problems that the individual saw, and we will actually send an environmental health specialist that works that area of the county out to do an investigation. Oh, now that is great to know, because I'm sure people see those kind of things. And like you said, the grade is a snapshot of one day. That's correct. So if there's something going on that you guys need to know about, they can call. That's right. We also have on our website where you can go and find the grade, or what you guys report, your report on our website. I think it's called the Digital Health Center. Digital Health Department. Yeah. Yeah, and they can actually pull up the grade. They can actually read the comments that the environmental health specialist put in there. Yeah, so if you've got a restaurant that you're interested in, you frequent a lot, they might want to pull up that report and just see, you know, if you've got one that you think you might want to visit, they might want to pull that one up and see what they think before they go. So that's a great tool. I know a lot of people use that. It's real popular. I think you guys have done a great job, because you do, like you just said,
your job unnoticed.
Right.
And hardly anybody knows that you guys do this. I think most people that I've talked to don't have a clue where that grade comes from.
Right.
And it comes from right here at home by our own Buncombe County inspectors.
We're local health departments. If we're doing our job properly, then you never know we're here.
That's right. So now you know. Stay tuned, because next we're going to be talking to the sheriff, who's going to give us some points on being safe, how safe he feels like the county is, the job they're doing, and then he'll give us some tips on how we can be safe in our home. So stay tuned.
You may know one of the biggest drug dealers in our community.
This drug dealer is supplying prescription medicine to the kids in our local schools.
Studies show that 1 in 5 teens have experienced prescription drugs. These drugs are the prescription medicine that's in everyone's home.
It can be medicine for pain relief, depression, muscle relaxers, allergies, or simply cough and cold medicines.
There are a few things you can do to keep these drugs out of kids' hands. Monitor your medicine, count the pills on a regular basis.
Don't keep the medicines where teens can find them. Keep them in a controlled area. Please be responsible for your prescription medicines.
And help keep them out of our schools.
I'm so glad you've joined us, because we're going to have a really good talk this morning with Van Duncan, the sheriff for Buncombe County. You've been our sheriff for 4 years.
Yes, ma'am.
Just got reelected.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And we're sitting down with him to just talk about, one of the main things I wanted to talk to you about is, because you have just been reelected, what are you most proud of that you accomplished, and then what are some of the things that you're concerned about for this next 4 years as you lead us as our sheriff?
Well, Kathy, starting out 4 years ago, we had a pretty large laundry list of things that we needed to get done.
You did.
And I've been very excited about the things that we've been able to accomplish. We've got 390 employees, and very good folks, and they work very hard every day, but just starting with patrol, we were able to get more officers out there to answer calls for service, and we readjusted our shifts. We brought our emergency response times down to just under 10 minutes. We saw our influx and calls go up at the same period of time, and we answer about 57,000 calls a year. And
well, now let me ask you, because I know out where I live in Fairview, I do see y'all out there much more than I used to.
Yes.
Just see the cars, which it actually is good. I like that. But two, just the times we're living in, it's difficult times for people. Has you felt the impact of that at all, like on your patrol and on your calls, your call volume?
Actually, no, not really.
Oh, that's good.
And it's kind of a nationwide trend. We've really not seen crime go up in most places, as well as Buncombe County and Asheville. We've seen the crime rate actually drop in the 8 major UCR crimes. So that's really a good, positive thing. But we think one of the reasons why we've been pretty successful with that is the presence, having officers out there that can respond in a timely manner. We've seen our solvability rates go up in our cases that do go upstairs to criminal investigations.
Right.
Just a lot of good things all the way around, getting numbers coming in the right direction.
Now, so is there anything that you're concerned with, or that you're going to start working on as you go forward into the next 4 years?
Well, with these tough economic times, one of the things that we're having to pay particular attention to is figuring out how to reduce in places where we can and still maintain a level of service that we've been delivering.
Right.
So that's job one. That's the first challenge. And probably if you're asking me about an emerging problem that I'm seeing out there, it has to do with prescription drugs, with pharmaceuticals. We are getting ready to do a media campaign on the drop box that you probably saw out front. We're going to start taking prescription drugs in from households. You know, it's been kind of tough to dispose of those things in the past appropriately. So we've got an old mailbox out there. Well, actually, it's a new mailbox that's designed to hold pharmaceuticals, and we're going to be taking those from 8:30 to 5 Monday through Friday. So we'll let folks know so they can come in and drop those things off.
Oh yeah, that'll be great. But let me, because you talked about this before, and I think you and the city chief did a thing together about prescription drugs, which was great, and we may even pull that commercial out and show it during this. But People are not supposed to flush that stuff down the toilet.
No, in some other urban areas, they've found that it really has a drastic effect on the water, the quality of the water. There's actually a pretty regimented protocol for how they're supposed to be destroyed, and we incinerate them and burn those things, and we take them in, and we have to account for them when they come in.
Right, and people are not supposed to leave them in their cabinets after they get old, because you're not supposed to take them after a certain date. But middle school kids, I think, is, back when we talked about this before, that was the target age is middle school kids, but now I think it's across the board, will actually get into the cabinets and take these things.
Yes, it's the biggest problem we see in our middle and high schools right now when it comes to controlled substances is prescription drugs that come from mom, dad, grandma's cabinets.
And I know that a lot of your offices have been trained in that crisis.
Yes.
That is great, too.
Yes, our CIT training has been extremely important for us, crisis intervention training. One of the things that Buncombe County has been ahead of the curve on is dealing with people who suffer from mental illness and how those folks are dealt with when we respond to deal with them initially. And what we've tried to do is if somebody's having a behavioral crisis and they're kind of having a meltdown and they need to get back into some sort of short-term care to get them stabilized and basically acclimated back into life in general, we've tried to avoid the criminal justice piece. Or in other
jail
words,
is not the solution.
No, it's not. And we found out that jail was pretty quickly becoming a catch basin for people with mental illness across the state. So we've taken some real positive steps and proactive steps in managing that jail population and working with our consumers of mental health services.
And your jail population is down.
Yes, it is, and that's another.
That's amazing.
That's another great number. And some people say, well, Sheriff, it's not a good. You shouldn't you have a jail full of criminals? But really and truthfully, what we've tried to do is we've tried to take things out such as the folks who have mental health issues and get them into treatment as opposed to setting in jail. People who have very minor charges, indigent folks who might not be able to navigate the system so well, substance abuse issues, we try to get them out into treatment, and a lot of them we found out were staying longer than what their sentence would be for what they were in jail for, but they really didn't know how to navigate. So while they were waiting on trial, they were actually staying in there longer than if they had gotten their trial and gotten sentenced. So we've really actively managed that jail population so we can make room for the serious criminal offenders. And we were looking at having to build another jail.
That's what I was going to say. One of the projections I remember hearing was that the population was so big, there would have already been a phase 3 of the jail. You would be in the process of putting it together now, and that you don't need it.
The long-range projection when we came into office back in '06 was right now we'd be building a third, and that's the most expensive thing we undertake in the county.
That's right. And I think it's excellent. Also, you've freed up some room to take federal prisoners, which we actually make money off of those.
We have.
So
we just renegotiated a federal contract, so that helps alleviate some of that taxpayer burden when we can hold federal inmates and generate that income. So things are going very well. We do have some issues out there such as prescription drugs and figuring out how to maintain levels of service with some of the cutbacks that we're doing. So, but very optimistic. It's been a good 4 years, and we're looking forward to this next. Reported crime calls to dispatch are down just a little bit. Crime rate's down just a little bit. Our numbers of arrest, which if those other numbers weren't going in the right direction, if we were making less arrests, it probably wouldn't be as good. But with those other numbers moving in that direction, making less arrests and jail population down, those are all good things. That means that when all those numbers are lined up and moving in the same direction, it's a good thing.
Well, now, when I look at these two things together, it tells me something's going right, because if our population is increasing, we're bringing more people here, but our crime rate is decreasing or at least leveling off.
Yes.
That's a very positive thing.
It's very positive, and I think it says a lot for Western North Carolina. You know, we see a lot of negative things on the news, and really, if you draw your perception from mainstream media, you'd think we're living in the worst place in the world and in the worst times in the world. But really and truthfully, what we've seen over the past 2 years is the crime rate decrease statewide overall. but in Buncombe County and Asheville, we watched it drop in unincorporated Buncombe County 3% year before last and 11% this past year.
Wow.
The city had a 13% decrease in
That's
the
wonderful.
8 major crimes that which are reported by the SBI. Those aren't arrest driven; they're driven by reports,
Right.
by citizen complaints and reports. So it's a pretty good way to draw data to see what the situation is.
That is wonderful news, and I hope you at home like to hear that. It makes me feel a lot better. But we still need to keep our guard up.
Could always we can continue to drop that number.
That's right.
If we're very aware of our situational awareness, what's going on around us, making sure that we lock our homes up. A lot of folks talk about locking their cars in the driveway, and what we find, somebody that's breaking into a car, window glass is not a huge obstacle for them. So what's really more important than anything is lock your valuables in the trunk or take them inside. Don't leave them where they're visible in the car.
Right.
And that alleviates more than actually locking the car, because if you leave a good prize inside,
They're going for it.
They're going for it, whether
Right.
the car's locked or not.
Know your neighbors.
Know your neighbors. Community watch. You know, nobody wants a nosy neighbor unless
true.
they stop somebody from breaking into your house. Having good neighbors that watch out for one another is probably the best crime deterrent we have.
I think it is. And you know, it could be, I haven't read this anywhere, this is just a thought I just thought of. Because times are hard, maybe we're doing a little more of that. It could be helping the crime rate. It could be.
Yes.
If it's not, it certainly could.
Yes, absolutely. And I think now's the time when, especially with us, as we grow, even if calls for service start back up, we're probably not going to be able to increase in staffing. So one of the directives that we've had here at the Sheriff's Office is to go out to the community and basically make them advocates, and also team up with the community and helping us do a better job in keeping our neighborhoods patrolled and looking out for those things that we need to know about.
Yeah. And you still do the Crime Watch
We do.
education, so we can get
Yes.
that information on the screen for folks to know if they want to call and get some of that in their neighborhood.
Yes, yes. We still go out and do community watch programs and set those organizations in place so that community knows how to go about doing that in a best practices method.
That is great. Well, is there anything else you want the folks at home to know as you start out this next 4 years as our sheriff?
You know, we're really fortunate. Buncombe County's a great place to live.
It is.
Asheville's a great place to live. We're pretty unique in that we're a pretty large city and we're a large county, but comparatively speaking, our crime rate's pretty low. Probably the most dangerous thing you do statistically every day is get in your car and drive. So that's another thing that I would stress, just paying attention, being safe, and that situational awareness when you're out driving to avoid accidents. And seat belting in. We had a fatality this past weekend out on Lester Highway, and it was due. It was a bad wreck, but 2 people in the vehicle, one was seat belted in, one was not, and the fatality was the person who was not seat belted in. Always wear that seat belt and be careful when you drive. That cuts down on your statistics of getting hurt in our county dramatically.
Right. And that helps y'all out too.
Yes, absolutely.
That's great. Well, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And we'll be back in touch here about that prescription drug.
Take back program.
Take back
to where we
program.
can get those things out of schools and out of the water supply and have a good way to dispose of
We
them.
definitely want to come back and hear about that. So thank you and stay tuned. I hope you've enjoyed this edition of Buncombe Live, hearing from David and all that they do. You know, after we stopped filming, he told me that they also review pools, tattoo parlors, hot dog vendors, all of the Belshare vendors, all of the Mountain State Fair vendors, and all the nursing homes, and you name it, those folks do amazing things. They keep us safe, and isn't it amazing we never hear about them? And very seldom do we find a place that's you hear about people getting sick. I think they do a fabulous job. But just like he said, if you see something out there that you think needs to be reported, please call them up and do report that. Hope you also enjoyed the sheriff. I love talking to him because he does give us a good feeling that we're safe here, and they do such a good job patrolling and watching out for us and keeping us safe. And we hope you enjoy some of those tips that he gave us and that you will take those to heart. As we go through this year, we are growing BC together, growing Buncombe County healthier, greener, kinder, safer, and smarter. Next month, we're going to be making you smarter. We're going to show you how Buncombe County strives every year to improve us in all those core values and especially smarter. So stay tuned next month and see where we go. Thanks.